So once again today we are studying LPT, and therein we are studying very important topic, which is Indian dairy products. Many times questions have been asked from this portion of this exam. So Indian dairy products as well as the byproducts becomes a very important topic from the examination point of view. So we'll study each of these products in great detail. Alright, starting with these are all the contents that we'll be studying. We'll start with the basic statistics. We've already discussed about the statistics in beginning classes. Here we'll only focus on the Indian dairy products, and then we'll compare them with the Western dairy products. Okay, because this table which I'll teach you, that will be very important from examination point of view, and many times questions have been asked from this portion that which kind of Indian dairy product corresponds to this Western dairy product, or which kind of technology or processing method is used for producing this dairy product. These kind of questions are asked multiple times in the examination. And LPT being a very small topic, very small subject, you can easily predict that which kind of questions will be asked in the examination. So since I have already told you that data and these kind of questions are important, the data, specifications, the defects that are there, sometimes the processing technologies, the temperatures at which the processing is being done, those kind of questions become very important from this. Okay, and apart from this, the processing technologies, as I've mentioned, the values, FSSAI values, that becomes important, the standard values, the percentages of fat, SNF percentage, that is also very important. Then the various products that are manufactured, how we'll produce those products, what are the defects that will be encountered during the production of those products, that is also very important. Then the method of production, that becomes also very important. Some topics are very repetitive, multiple times questions have been asked. Okay, and sometimes there will be slight overlap between LPM and LPT. So since already I have divided the portion in dairy technology and then the meat technology, most of the questions will be asked from the dairy technology. The meat technology portion is also very important, but most of the topics correspond to the dairy technology portion. So today we will be studying about this kheer, basundi, khoya, khurchan, rabdi, kulfi, these kind of products we will be studying today. So starting with the introduction to the Indian dairy products. So we've already mentioned earlier, and we know this very well, that India is the world's largest milk producer. Every year it contributes 25% of the global milk production. India corresponds to the 25% or the 1/4 of the whole of the global milk production, and it is equivalent to the 247 million metric tons of milk production. So why we are contributing largely? Because the animal productivity is low. Even though the animal productivity per animal productivity is low, which is around 2079 kgs per annum per animal, however, since we hold the majority of the livestock species, all right, and also we have the largest number of bovine species as well, so that is why we are number one globally, ranked number one when it comes to the total milk production. And 50% of the milk in India is converted into traditional indigenous dairy products. And why is that so? Because whole of the milk cannot be consumed as such, and there is different availability, market availability also varies. There is geographical discrimination in terms of the geographical availability of the milk production. For example, in some areas, for example in Punjab, it reaches up to 1000 kgs, all right, per capita milk availability, and overall it is 485 grams per day. It goes up to, sometimes in some areas it goes up to 1000 grams or the 1 kg. However, in some areas it is still deficient. The areas which have the highest productivity, or the areas wherein the livestock species, the contribution of bovine species is more in the livestock, there the availability will be higher, and the market consumption, market availability, that is also a thing which determines whether the availability of milk would be higher or lower. So since milk is very nutritious, it is susceptible to spoilage also, so it should be converted to other products. Otherwise the shelf stability is very less. Within a day, within some hours only, it will get spoiled and it will get wasted. So what we need is, we need to convert it into traditional indigenous dairy products. Since the milk history in India dates back to the prehistoric times, so we are very well versed with the different production. We are very well versed with the production of different dairy products. For example, the ghee, alright, dahi, all these products are well developed. Then depending on the area, different sweet meats that we say. Sweet meats are basically the products which are sweet in nature and are produced from the dairy products. Okay, so the indigenous products, khoya, chhana, then dahi, ghee, paneer, lassi, kulfi, etc. All these are the indigenous products that are developed in India. These products are deeply embedded in Indian culture, cuisine, nutrition, and it is deeply embedded in Indian culture because it corresponds to the various festivals that are celebrated in India. It is deeply part of Indian tradition. Then regulation comes under FSSAI, then egg mark, then BIS is also there. Egg mark is for ghee also. When we'll study about ghee, we'll study about the egg mark standards as well. So basically FSSAI is the which gives the regulatory standards for whole of the milk products. For some other milk products like ghee, etc., egg mark will be producing the regulatory standards. Then already discussed, again I have revised these statistics. Rest, these should be at the tip of your tongue. You should know this very well. Okay, next, coming to the, alright, since I've already mentioned, the total milk production is 247 million metric tons. Then per capita milk availability is 485 grams per day. This is for overall whole of India, the average values. However, it varies from one location to another. And milk utilization as well. So 50% is used for liquid for the daily consumption, and the rest of the 50% is used for product manufacturing. So product wise, majority is converted into ghee, then dahi, paneer, khoya, others, etc. So these four are the basic and the major milk products that are produced in India. Major indigenous dairy products produced in India. Majority is the ghee, then dahi, paneer, khoya, etc. So since we are well versed about the Operation Flood, and this you'll also study in extension. So Operation Flood was the one which gave impetus to the milk production in India. Prior to that, we were not globally the number one milk producers, but after that with the contribution of Dr. Verghese Kurian and his visionary development, he transformed India into top dairy nation. And the key dairy states, you already know this, we've already discussed which were the major milk producers and the major contributors in the livestock sector. Then this table is very important. I've already discussed that these kind of questions are directly asked in the examination. So based on the different category, it can be concentrated whole milk products, coagulated milk products, or the products of clarified butterfat industry. So butterfat or ghee is produced through clarification process, whereas when sometimes the coagulation will be done, then these are the products which will be produced. Otherwise, whole of the milk will be concentrated or sometimes evaporated, then these milk products would be produced. Starting with the concentrated whole milk products. So first is kheer or basundi. In the case of kheer, what we do is we condense it, and so the corresponding western product would be condensed milk. Why not only evaporated milk but condensed milk? Because in case of condensed milk, sugar is also added, whereas in the case of evaporated milk, sugar is added later on in the stage and not during production process. It might be added later on during consumption. For example, we do consume khoya as such, but usually it is sweetened. The khoya is usually sweetened, so later on it is the sugar is added later on in the process for consumption, but not during the production process. Whereas in the case of kheer, we add the sugar alongside the other products like chawal, rice, and as well as we also concentrate it. How we'll concentrate it? We'll keep it over in a pan, and then we'll allow it to evaporate, allow the water or the moisture to evaporate. So basically it is an evaporated and sweetened milk, that is the condensed milk. So the corresponding western product you have to remember. You have to remember that the Indian dairy product is this. Then what is its corresponding western product? What is the principle of manufacture and method of utilization? You can easily decipher. You don't need to remember for each of these values. So starting with the kheer, condensed milk, then how it is done, how it is manufactured. So by partial dehydration in open pan with sugar, sometimes rice. So it is not completely dehydrated. Had it been completely dehydrated, the remaining product would have less than 10% of the moisture level. However, that is not the case in case of kheer. We do not evaporate it wholly. The moisture content is still there in the kheer. So there is partial dehydration, not complete dehydration as such, in an open pan along with sugar and sometimes rice. So second product is khoya, or also known as mawa. So the khoya is also known as mawa. This is also important. This can also be asked. Khoya and mawa are the one and the same thing. So it is also produced by evaporation of milk. Okay, or open pan dehydration to a semi-solid consistency. So khoya has semi-solid consistency. This is important. Khoya has semi-solid consistency. Third is the rabdi. So rabdi is also clotted cream. This is very important. Rabdi is basically clotted cream. However, it is concentrated whole milk product. From this, it has not been coagulated, but rather it is clotted cream. Again, herein we go for partial dehydration in open pan along with addition of sugar. All these are for the direct consumption, whereas khoya is basically it acts as a base for the traditional sweets or the traditional sweetmeats. It acts as a base from which other products can be produced. We'll study about it when we study khoya in detail. So different kind of products will be produced from khoya depending on the fat percentage of the khoya and the classification of khoya. So based on these, different kind of products can be produced. Next is kulfi. Since you already know, kulfi is basically the ice cream. So it is again concentrated milk to which sugar has been added and it has been frozen. It is also used for direct consumption. So these were all the concentrated whole milk products. Next, coming to the coagulated milk product. So what is coagulation? It is basically coagulation of the milk protein that we studied in the first and second classes. So dahi is basically the fermentation process is being done here. So it is basically fermented product, or in Western corresponding product we call it curd or yogurt. Okay. In case of Shrikhand, it is sweetened curd. Okay. Herein also we go for fermentation, but later on it is also strained and kneaded with sugar. So this is the differentiating factor. There we only go for fermentation. In case of dahi, we go for fermentation, whereas for Shrikhand we go for fermentation, then straining is done, kneading with sugar. These things are important, and sometimes this can be asked, and you should remember that this is wherein the straining kneading is done. However, this is Shrikhand. So you need to remember that the definition, you need to remember the principle of manufacturing. Based on this, you can easily decipher which kind of product is being asked in the exam. Then paneer, it is soft cheese. It is basically cheese. Paneer is basically cheese, but the soft cheese. Different kind of cheese can be there based on the method of formation. So when the rennet coagulation is being done, then the product obtained is the sweet cheese. Whereas acid coagulation is also there. So when acid coagulation is done, then the chhana is produced. Okay, remember this. When acid coagulation will be there, then chhana, and paneer when the rennet coagulation is there. Rennet coagulation, then draining and salting. So lactic coagulated acid, here what is acid? Here it is lactic acid only. So these are the differentiating factors between paneer and chhana. Okay, so these were all the coagulated milk products. In case of coagulation, what is being coagulated? The milk protein is being coagulated. Then clarified butter fat industry. So since I've told you earlier also that clarification is a process by which the butter is separated. Butter is so butter is basically, what is butter? It is makhan. Makhan is the butter. Butter oil is ghee, and buttermilk is lassi. You already know this, that lassi is the buttermilk, ghee is butter oil, and makhan is the butter. These things are important, but we sometimes tend to forget these. So these kind of questions you should never commit mistakes in these kind of questions, because these are the brownie questions. Even the one who will not study for the exam and will attempt it, they also know these kind of questions. So you should never commit mistakes in these questions. So how it is produced? By churning of fermented whole milk. So when the whole of the milk is first fermented, thereafter it is churned and makhan will, or the butter will, separate. Then when the butter will be clarified, it will be allowed to precipitate, it will be allowed to clarify. Then what will produce? Will produce the ghee. Then after, from the ghee, from the makhan, or this, after churning, what will separate out as byproduct? That will be buttermilk or the lassi. So from milk, after fermentation and then churning of the fermented milk, the butter oil or the lassi will separate out, and all these can be used as a beverage as such for direct consumption. Ghee can be used, you know the different uses of ghee already, you know the different uses of makhan already. No need to learn all these kind of things. You can directly attempt these without learning. So these three table columns are very important. Next is the ghee residue. In case of ghee residue, what happens is the one which is obtained after formation as a byproduct of ghee. So it is the heat denatured SNF. This is also important. So it is basically the heat denatured SNF portion, because fat is the this ghee is basically the fat component, and the one which gets denatured, which gets removed, that is the ghee residue. So you have to cram this as much as you can, okay, because this is very important. This table is very, very important. I am again reiterating, this portion is very important. So this is basically the whole of the flow diagram, how we obtain different kind of products. So starting with whole milk, if we'll concentrate the whole milk, so three kind of products will be formed: khoya, kheer and kulfi. You already know the western corresponding products for these Indian indigenous products, so I'm not repeating them once again. However, you should remember that these are the processes that are being followed, and these are the products which are the result of these technological processes. So from whole milk, if we concentrate the whole milk, then kheer, kulfi and khoya will be produced. What will produce? If we concentrate whole of the milk, then what are the products that will be produced? Kheer, khoya as well as kulfi. So if we separate the cream from the skim milk or the fat portion, if we eliminate the fat portion, then the one which is left is the skim milk. You already know the FSSAI standards for the skim milk. Fat percentage will be less than 0.5 and SNF percentage will be 8.7. So again, fat percentage will be less than 0.5% and SNF 8.7%. So from the skim milk, again you can go for two processes. Either you can ferment it or you can coagulate it. As said earlier, fermentation produces dahi. Okay, fermentation produces dahi, whereas coagulation produces paneer. But here, since we are operating on the skim milk and not on whole milk, so the dahi that will be produced from the fermentation process will be non-fat dahi, whereas in the case of coagulation, what we'll produce is non-fat paneer and not completely whole milk paneer. Okay, so non-fat paneer and non-fat dahi. So what we did before separation, we separated the fat portion. So from the fat portion, what will produce? Cream will be produced. Cream can be produced. So from cream we can churn and produce butter, and from butter, after clarification, we can produce ghee. So this is basically the flow diagram. From whole milk we can separate cream, and from cream butter will be produced, and from butter again ghee can be produced. So if we'll ferment, so next coming to the fermentation of whole milk. So if we'll go for fermentation of whole milk, again as said earlier, dahi will be produced. What we'll produce is dahi, and from that we can produce makhan or again butter. Makhan is basically, it corresponds to the western product of butter. So makhan can be produced and dahi can be byproduct of that makhan. Okay, dahi is lassi can be produced as byproduct of makhan, and lassi is again buttermilk, and chakka we'll study about it later. So it is also produced from dahi. Then if we go for coagulation of whole milk, what we'll produce is chhana or paneer. Okay, since we've already studied this, I'm once again telling you this is the whole process, and you have to remember whether it's concentrated product after separation, fermentation, coagulation, what are the basic technological processes, what are the basic method of preparation. From this portion, direct questions will not be there, that they'll not ask you method of preparation, complete method of preparation. They'll only ask you these kind of questions: which processing is being done, which kind of processing is there, what is the basic principle, the word here is basic principle of production, that is important. How we'll produce this, and what are the western corresponding products of these Indian products. So this was the brief overview. Now we'll start with each of the products, each of these indigenous products. So starting with the kheer. So what is kheer? You are already well versed with kheer. It is the heat desiccated. Desiccation is basically evaporation. Desiccation is nothing but evaporation. Elimination of moisture is basically desiccation. So how it is being evaporated, how it is being desiccated, how the moisture is eliminated from whole milk through addition of heat, through heating of the milk. So kheer is a heat desiccated sweetened milk product prepared by concentrated whole milk with added sugar, rice, vermicelli. Vermicelli, what is vermicelli? It is basically the suji that we make for sometimes will be made. Okay, then sugar also called payasam in South India. Then firni is the rice flour that is produced in during some festivals. Then basundi in Maharashtra, Gujarat without rice. So these are the variations that are there across India. You'll find different multiple variations. In some societies different kind of products will be added, whereas in some elimination will be there. Okay, so composition, moisture is majority as I said earlier. So there it is not complete desiccation, it is not completely evaporation. Here partial desiccation or partial evaporation is being done. So the moisture content will not be eliminated completely. It will be there 60 to 65%. So fat will basically vary, and it will depend on the type of milk that is being used. 5 to 6% protein is also there, then sugar is added externally. Okay, so traditionally prepared using buffalo or cow milk in open pans. Traditionally, either buffalo milk or cow milk, both are equally important for this production. When we'll study khoya, we'll see that buffalo milk is the one which is preferred over cow milk for the production. Then popular festival, it has religious association as well. So no egg mark standard, but still the Amul, Verka, these kind of products will produce different variety of kheers. These are covered under FSSAI regulations, but no egg mark. Since I have already mentioned, egg mark will be for ghee. So FSSAI regulations will be the one will follow for other milk products, for other indigenous products. Next, coming to the method of manufacturing. We've already discussed how it is manufactured. The definition is important here. Here is the heat desiccated sweetened milk product prepared by concentrating whole milk with added sugar, rice, vermicelli or sugar. Again, eliminating these, or together they can be added as well. So whole milk is preheated, then boiling and simmering is done. Then washed rice is added. It is concentrated. How it's concentrated? By keeping it at boiling temperatures or simmering it. So it will keep on concentrating. Then adding sugar, flavor. Then sometimes the different kind of condiments is also added. Then cooling it and packaging or serving based on the whether it is made at home or whether it is produced for commercial purposes. So this is the basic manufacturing process. Next, the tests or the quality defects. So these are basically, it will be we'll cover these defects later on as well, because it is a separate topic also, but still briefly studying these here also. Quality tests can be organoleptic tests. I've already mentioned about the organoleptic tests when we studied about the processing of raw milk during pasteurization class. So therein we studied the various sensory evaluation of milk can be done through organoleptic test. So it is the evaluation of the color, flavor, body, texture. Okay, the total solids can also be studied, fat percentage, acidity. So these are the quality tests that can be done for kheer. Good quality kheer is creamy white color, sweet caramelized flavor and smooth body. So defects can be scorching. If too much high temperature is done, it is being used at very high temperature, so it will lead to scorching or the burning smell and burning taste. Okay, sometimes because also of insufficient stirring. Then slimy body can be because of over fermentation. Then sandiness is basically because of lactose, because lactose crystallizes and there will be sandiness or coarseness because of lactose. Then fat can also be separated. Then how we'll evaluate whether the starch has been added here in case of kheer or not? That is, basic test is iodine test. Iodine test is used for checking the adulteration of starch. Then fat addition, etc. All these adulteration tests will be studied later on. Then shelf life. This shelf life is not that important here, because this shelf life will not be asked in examination, because even if it will be asked, you can get an idea, estimate it, and you can easily tell whether it will be what will be the shelf life, even if it's asked in the exam. So no formal egg mark grading is being done, but the FSSAI standards apply for moisture and fat content. I told you earlier as well that in these kind of questions, if they'll ask you FSSAI standards, so these FSSAI standards will be only important for fat and the SNF percentage. And especially for the whole concentrated whole milk, these kind of questions, the fat and SNF corresponds to the type of milk which was used initially for the production of these products. Okay. Sorry. So the second product is khoa or mawa. So what is a khoa? It is basically heat desiccated product. So it is the product obtained by heat desiccation of whole milk to a moisture content of less than 30%. As said earlier, so it is after complete, it is production of semi-solid consistency after heat desiccation of whole of the milk and concentrating it. So it is also called mawa, khoa, most important indigenous dairy product by quantity, because after ghee, the second and the third most important products are dahi and khoa, and it is important for production of majority of traditional sweets in India. So khoa acts as a base for majority of traditional products. So once again, it is important, and it is a very important indigenous dairy product by quantity. So India produces more than 5 lakh million tons or metric tons of khoa annually, in majority from the UP, Rajasthan, Punjab. So the regions where the milk production will be high, naturally in those regions we'll find that more of it is being converted into indigenous dairy products. So different kinds of khoa will be there: pindi, dhap and danedar. Danedar, this one is the danedar khoa. We'll classify it later here. Here we'll classify it into 3 types: pindi, dhap and danedar, based on the fat percentage and the type of sweets that can be prepared from these classification of khoa. So first is the pindi, which has 21 to 26% of fat content. The fat content you have to remember, because these are asked, the values are asked in the exam. Then what kind of sweets are prepared from pindi? It is barfi, the various varieties of barfi, all different varieties can be there, barfi and peda. Then second is the dhap, which has 20 to 23% of fat, and gulab jamun and pantua is used for the production from dhap. Then third one is the danedar, which has 20 to 25%. Please remember the fat percentages of these three. Then kalakand and gurd barfi is the one which is produced from the danedar. So why it is danedar? Because it is basically the granular khoa. High acidity is utilized here. So the milk with high acidity, the khoa having high acidity, that will be producing the granular khoa, and that is called the danedar khoa. So these three are the 3 varieties of khoa, and these 3 varieties are used for production of different kind of sweets. Again, the types: pindi khoa, dhap khoa and here danedar khoa. Okay, the composition will be 20 to 26% as we've studied already. Then protein will also be around 20. If you'll find it difficult to remember, please remember that it will be around 20%, because since we are concentrated it, I've told you that it is a concentrated milk product. Okay, concentrated whole milk product. And if we consider 4-fold concentration, and if we consider that the initial value was around 5%, which is the case usually, around 5% is the initial value of fat SNF, mostly fat percentage around 5%. So if we'll concentrate it to 4-fold values, it will go up to 20%. So estimated or the approximate values you can remember is around 5%. Okay, it can be more than that, because sometimes the higher values will also be there, but approximately, if you forget these questions, you can easily remember that we are going for 4-fold concentration in case of khoa. So if the initial value is 5%, what will be the final final value of fat percentage in the product? It will be around 20%. Simple mathematical calculation. So in case of protein as well, 17 to 20%. The lactose value will also 22 to 28%, because the lactose is also around 5% initially. Then in the case of moisture, as said earlier, less than or equal to 30%, and ash 3.6%. So used in barfi, peda, gulab jamun, etc. All these kind of things will involve the formation of khoa and utilization of khoa. Very important process. So again, what we do here is We take the whole of the fresh whole milk, boil it in open pan continuously. We'll keep on stirring it. So when the kind of utensil that we use in this, also it will lead to around 100 ppm, 110 ppms of iron will be added. Sometimes 104 ppm, sometimes 110 ppm. So because there is continuous stirring, and the usually iron equipments are used for the utensil and production, so iron will also be added. Then the concentration will reach 70 to 80%, and it is being concentrated at 70 to 80%. Don't confuse the 70-80% with fourfold concentration. Fourfold concentration is a different thing. 70 to 80% concentration is a different thing. Then scrapping is also continuously, it needs to be stirred. Scrapping is being done. Then for afterwards there is mass formation. It is scrapped, and it is needed in a compact mass, and then it is cooled to 60 degrees Celsius. Earlier, since it was very high temperature, we are boiling it, then molding and packaging. Simple molding it in different forms. Then the egg mark standards. For khoa, fat should be more than or equal to 20%, moisture content less than or equal to 30%, milk solids also more than or equal to 70%. BIS standards are also being used. Then different quality tests are also there. Clot on boiling test for acidity, then titrable acidity. Then microbiological test should also be. Standard plate count should be less than 5 into 10 raised to power 5 CFUs per gram. Then adulteration can be detected. How we'll test for starch? Again same, iodine test. Then for vanaspati, badon test. This test is also used for ghee. You have to remember the name of this test. Even in the case of ghee, you have to remember this. It will be similar only. Then foreign fat, RM value, Polansk value, these all we'll be studying in the case of ghee as well. So these values, since the ghee also has the milk fat, here also the milk fat is being concentrated, so the values will be similar only. So the defects can be hard body because of excessive heat, scorching will be there because of insufficient stirring, and also high heat, then scorching, insufficient stirring, then rancidity. Already I told you that if the lipase will be activated, so it will lead to rancidity of milk fat. So basically it will hydrolyze the fat, milk fat, it will get hydrolyzed because of presence of lipase, which is basically an enzyme which gets activated around 40 degrees Celsius. So mold growth can also be there if it will be very old or stale khoa. Then mealy texture can also be there. So this again, it is important to the physical quality of cow and buffalo khoa. Starting with the color. So for in case of cow, it will be straw or pale yellow with a tinge of brown, whereas in the case of buffalo it will be whitish. Since I've already told you why the milk color in case of cow is not whitish, it has a yellowish tinge, whereas in the case of buffalo it is whitish. Why is that so? Because buffalo utilizes carotene, whole of the carotene, converts it into vitamin A. 2 molecules of beta carotene, okay, it will be for the formation of vitamin A. So buffalo will fully utilize the beta carotene, and the beta carotene will not be available, or even if it will be in very negligible minute quantities in case of milk. So milk in buffalo will be whitish in color and does not have yellowish tinge, which is because of the carotene content. So again, the milk products that are formed from the cow milk will be different and has a yellowish tinge, whereas that formed from the buffalo milk will not have that, and it will have a whitish tinge. Okay, sorry. Okay, once again. So it will have a whitish tinge. So appearance will be moist in case of cow, khoa, and whereas in the case of buffalo khoa it will be oily or greasy. Why it will be oily or greasy? Because the fat content in case of buffalo khoa will be higher, so it will produce oily or greasy surface. That is the one which is preferred, and that is the desirable appearance of the khoa, and moist appearance is not desired. So we prefer buffalo milk for production of khoa, as I said earlier as well. In the case of body, it will be slightly hard, whereas in case of buffalo khoa it will be softer in nature. Then the texture will be sandy, whereas it is not so in the case of buffalo khoa. It will be smooth as well as granular. Then the smell will be rich and nutty in case of both, and the taste will be slightly salted, slightly sweet. So desirability will be, suitability will be more in the case of buffalo khoa. So buffalo khoa is preferred over cow khoa, or the khoa produced from the cow milk will be less preferred as compared to that produced from the buffalo milk. So these are all this was all for khoa. Next, coming to the advantages and disadvantages or the storage conditions. So as I have already told you, the khoa is very important. Majority of it is being used. So what are its advantages? It is a rich source of milk fat, protein, carbohydrates, okay, and it is a base for 600 plus Indian sweet varieties. Majority of Indian sweets will have khoa as the base. Then no need for refrigeration during manufacture. It is a simple technology, low capital investment, it is cost effective, easily available even in the rural areas. Employment generation, provides employment to the rural areas. Then retains most milk nutrients except some water soluble vitamins which might be lost during production. Apart from majority of these, whole of this can be utilized, and it is very nutritive content is, since it is being fourfold concentration is being done, so whole of the nutrient is preserved. It also has better shelf life, shelf stability will be more as compared to that of the whole milk, okay. Then still there are disadvantages as well. Short shelf stability. So if we compare the shelf stability of whole milk with the khoa, of course khoa will have better shelf stability, but not so if we compare it with that of dahi, fermented, or the cheese, because those will have better shelf stability as compared to khoa. So it is basically for comparison purpose. Then if we compare it with the sterilized milk, of course the shelf stability will be very poor if we compare it with the sterilized milk. In case of khoa, it is still better than whole milk, but lesser if we compare it with the sterilized milk. Then highly susceptible to microbial contamination. So you already know that microbial contamination will depend on the presence of availability of moisture, suitable temperature, then nutritive content. So as and when the quantity of nutrient increases, the susceptibility to microbial contamination also increases. A product which has high moisture content, it will be very high susceptible to microbial contamination. So since it has very high nutritive value, it has good amount of moisture, 60-65%, around 30% or less than that, still it will be higher. The susceptibility to microbial contamination will thereby be higher. Then no standardized quality control is being done in the traditional units. Why is that so? Because traditionally hygienic practices are not being followed. So since we are not that much concerned with the hygienic practices, so it has very high chance of being contaminated, because most of our products are being produced in the unorganized supply chain. Since we are going for unorganized supply chain manufacturing, there is very low value addition, there is very low scientific manufacturing practices that are being followed. So very high chances of being contaminated, and the products that will be produced might be of unhygienic, unsanitary practices. Again, there will be seasonal variations in quality and supply, because the milk production will also vary. then it is high labor input, because if we want to produce it on a mass commercial scale, it will require high labor intensity. Then it is a time consuming process, because heat desiccation and continuous stirring needs to be done, and India is one where, as I already told you, unorganized supply chain is there, not much automation is there is limited tech integration, the technological integration is very less. So again, the manual labor that is required, that will be more, and manual labor is required, and so it is more susceptible to errors as well. The manual errors will also be introduced, so there will be scorching, there will be Maillard reaction, Maillard type of reaction, or the browning will be there, wherein lysine is the major amino acid which is degraded if there will be Maillard type of reaction. So again, the nutritive quality degrades, the nutritional value will reduce. So these are all the disadvantages. So better quality khoa needs to follow scientific production processes, or the good manufacturing practices. So tech integration needs to be there. We need to go for better quality raw material, and then better production value. Next is the khurchan. So khurchan is basically, it is similar to khoa. So it is indigenous dairy product prepared by desiccating whole milk on a flat pan with continuous, here the crux is that we follow, we use flat pan, whereas in the case of khoa we went for hollow, or the not hollow, shallow, or the one which has more it has more depth, but here we are following a tawa, or the shallow pan. Then with continuous scraping, again in here thin flakes or shreds are produced. So it is basically literally means scrapings. So it is this scrapping technique is being done. So what happens here, the product which will be produced, it will be susceptible, it has higher chance of getting scorched. Okay, if the continuous stirring, continuous scrapping is not being done, and the point of contact will be more, or if the time period of contact will increase, it will be very very highly susceptible to getting scorched, or burnt flavor will be there. Light cream, so naturally it will be light cream or yellowish flakes, caramelized flavor will be there. Moisture content will be 10 to 12%, very low moisture content. Fat percentage 25 to 28%, protein 20%, lactose 30%. It differs from khoa. Here khurchan has a flaky or the layered texture, whereas khoa is a compact mass. As I told you, khoa is a compact mass. So here 5-fold concentration is being done, whereas in the case of khoa production we went for 4-fold concentration. So what is the manufacturing process? Buffalo whole milk heated in flat pan or tawa, then thin layer is being spreaded, and skim surface is getting scrapped again and again. So collect the flakes and cool it and pack in airtight containers. Next, coming to the quality defects. Okay, egg mark, again similar to that. Fat will be more than or equal to 20%, moisture less than or equal to 10%, then solids will be more than or equal to 90%. Again, good quality khurchan has yellowish white, flaky, dry, sweet, cooked flavor, crisp texture, etc. Then the defects can be excess moisture can be there, so it will lead to soggy flakes. Scorching can be there, then the rancidity because of lipase action, then sandiness because of lactose crystallization, then shelf life 5 to 7% if the moisture is, so shelf stability will be it will be automatically more because the moisture content is less. Quality test, moisture Bahauter oven, then fat by Gerber method. Fat is basically, fat percentage is by Gerber method, then acidity should have lower acidity, then khurchan has lower moisture than khoa, as already I've mentioned. So next is rubbery. We'll continue this in the next class. Today we discussed the products which were from the whole. So okay, let's complete the rabdi and kulfi as well, then we'll go for or it's already around 50. Okay, 50 minutes have been there, so we'll continue rabdi in the next class. Today we discussed about the first three important products, starting with kheer, then we discussed about khoa, we also discussed about khurchan. These three products we discussed today. So concentrated whole milk products. In the next class we'll discuss the rabdi, kulfi. These are also concentrated whole milk products. After that we'll discuss about the coagulated milk products, which will be important. The dahi is very important. Then shrikhand also very important. Multiple times they are asked in the examination. So summarizing whole of this table once again, because this is very important. In briefly I'll summarize it and then we'll close the class for today. So concentrated whole milk products, Indian dairy products, kheer and its corresponding western product is condensed milk, whereas in the case of khoa, the corresponding western product is evaporated milk. And the principle is partial dehydration, whereas in the case of khoa, open pan dehydration to a semi-solid consistency. Basically it is needed in a compact mass. Compact mass is produced having semi-solid consistency. It is important base for traditional sweets. Then rabdi, it is clotted cream. This has been asked multiple times. This clotted cream has been asked. So rabdi is basically clotted cream. Sometimes the confusion might be there between rabdi as well as shrikhand or paneer or this chhana. So it is clotted cream, whereas these are coagulated milk products. There is a difference between clotting and coagulation. We'll discuss it tomorrow. So kulfi is ice cream, concentrated frozen milk product to which sugar has also been added. Dahi, yogurt or curd through fermentation process. Shrikhand, again sweetened curd, fermentation along with straining and kneading with sugar. Then paneer, soft cheese, whereas chhana is lactic coagulated. Again very important. These things are also very important. Here rennet coagulation is there, whereas in chhana lactic or acid coagulation. Then next, the clarified butter fat industry, makhan, ghee and lassi. In case of makhan, the corresponding western product is butter, ghee, butter oil, lassi, buttermilk. Again through churning, through clarification and byproduct. Then what is ghee residue? How it is produced? It is produced by heat denatured. It is basically the heat denatured SNF of butter or cream. So today's class was very important. We'll continue it in next subsequent classes tomorrow as well. We'll meet tomorrow again at 6:30 p.m.